Hi, welcome to my review of Captain America Civil War, directed by Anthony and Joe Russo, an action film centered on Avengers leaders Steve Rogers and Tony Stark as a great conflict between the two arise for their opposing ideologies on the controversial domestication of their heroic team implored by world politics. And as a result, the shattering of their friendship begins, leaving their fellow Avengers to choose a side for the inevitable war to come within their own group. So if you've seen any of my other videos, then you may have heard me mention in the past that I don't have the most enthusiasm for the Marvel films, and it's not because I think that these are bad movies. I actually think that they are pretty decent to good, but nothing that I would deem to be extraordinary. Though there are some exceptions, of course, like Guardians of the Galaxy, and if you want to talk about the movies that are outside of the Disney MCU, I would also include the X-Men prequels, X-Men Days of Future Past, as well as First Class, and the Sam Raimi SpiderMan films, the first two. Although I probably would include the first Iron Man and the third Iron Man. I know a lot of people don't like the third Iron Man, but hey, at least it took a risk. And a lack of risk taking is among the problems that I have with the Disney MCU, because they're pretty safe. These are movies that have become somewhat formulaic or tropish, and they always end in a gigantic CGI-infested battle somewhere up high, and it's basically characters beating the crap out of one another, and in the process, they're basically destroying an entire city. It's nowhere near as bad as something in the realm of a Zack Snyder film, and of course there are casualties. However, the way this film addresses it, I actually thought was pretty intelligent and well thought out. So in other words, it's not like Batman v Superman where it just went full on dumbass. And since I am comparing this film to Batman v Superman, among the very many problems that Batman vs Superman had was that it mistook darkness for lifelessness or flavorlessness. Writing bland, underdeveloped characters and telling your actors not to emote other than frowning or signs of anger, that doesn't count as darkness, that counts as dullness. You can still have a film that is immensely intense and dark, yet still maintains a sense of fun. A great example of that is The Dark Knight. Another great example, although it's not as intense as The Dark Knight, is X-Men Days of Future Past. And another one is this film, Captain America Civil War. This is a film that knows how to balance its sense of fun with its dark tone, and this is the darkest film that has come out of the MCU by far. People praise Deadpool for how adult it was. Deadpool was never adult. Yes, it did take some risks in regard to it not shying away from language and violence, but it's still like perverse joke after perverse joke. It was pretty adolescent. This movie, on the other hand, this is adult. This is quite far from the Marvel comedy hour that we have come to know. It's actually a bit of a character study. And this is the first time while watching these specific set of characters that I actually felt something for them. So when you get to those moments when they start fighting, and I gotta talk about the fighting in a minute, it actually packs a punch. I mean, no pun intended, but it really does. And with the exclusion of one character, which I will talk about later, all the characters, not just Steve Rogers or Tony Stark, but all of them, all of their motivations are very well realized, and there are a lot of characters in this film. This movie also integrates a theme that has pretty much been done to death in superhero movies, and for the sake of spoilers, I'm not going to say what that is, but the way it is integrated into the film, I honestly, out of the MCU, I don't think it's ever been all the more effective. And for the most part, it felt pretty genuine. Now, just like The Winter Soldier, the fight choreography, it is very well choreographed, it is very well captured, and it's pretty hyper stylized. And this is just kind of a personal thing for me, but in some ways it's a little too hyper stylized just for my taste. I like my fighting to be just a little bit more grounded, and it did come off at times as what it was, which was choreographed. Still though, it is indeed an art, and the stunt work here is very much impressive. And when I talk about the hyper-stylization, I'm mostly talking about the Captain America stuff. One thing you might be wondering is, what is my take on the big battle, the actual Civil War that you see teased in the trailers? And there's many things I could say about it that are great. One of which being is that it's not just 5 to 10 minutes. No, it's like 15 to 25. It's pretty long. And it kicks all kinds of ass. By far, hands down, it's one of the best battles I've seen in a superhero movie ever. And when it gets to the Civil War segment, it kind of drops that more dramatic tone and goes for something a bit lighthearted. And I think that was a pretty smart move, albeit that it does become a bit more intense towards the end of the battle, and especially towards the end of the film. But a reason why I found the Civil War segment to be so much fun is largely due to one character who completely stole the entire show from me. And I'll admit, at first, I was a little nervous when I saw this character pop up in a trailer. Wasn't too odd about the voice, wasn't too odd about the costume either, but watching him in this film, I fucking love him. I love Spider-Man. There are two comic book characters that I love. One is, of course, Batman, and the other one is Spider-Man. And I love what they did with Spider-Man here. When he first steps on the scene, I was debating whether or not I even liked his voice because it's so high and squeaky. I was like, well, is this terrible or is this genius? And I think it's genius. The somewhat squeaky voice is perfect for the character because he's a kid, he's a teenager, and what I found kind of hysterical is just watching the dichotomy with him and the other characters. He steps onto the scene, he's all bright-eyed and enthusiastic just to simply be fighting amongst the Avengers. He's kind of like the fan. One thing Spider-Man is known for is banter, and he does this in this film so much so to where the characters, even on his own side, are like, will you just please shut the fuck up? And I've heard some people complain saying that they found him to be obnoxious, and truth be told, he is supposed to be obnoxious to the people he's fighting, but as a viewer, I never once felt that way. I absolutely loved him, and he was my favorite part of the movie for me. And although I'm going to have to see a standalone Spider-Man film in order to make a proper judgment, as a Spider-Man goes, Tom Holland is the best one that we've seen, but as for Peter Parker, I still gotta give it to Tobey Maguire. As for any other noteworthy newcomers, you also have Chadwick Boseman, who plays Black Panther, and Chadwick Boseman, I think, is insanely talented, especially after what he did in Get On Up as he played James Brown. Despite what you think about the movie, that's a fantastic performance. I really like Black Panther. I think he's a really cool character, and I think the movie does a pretty good job at setting up that character. My only problem that revolves around him is something that happens towards the beginning of the movie, and it's obvious. Just way too obvious. Maybe I'm speaking out of line here because I don't know what they're planning on doing with him in the future, but it just kind of felt like sort of a missed opportunity, if that makes any sense. As for a returning character, and his name is on the title of the movie, and that is Captain America, Steve Rogers, played by Chris Evans. I've never been the hugest Captain America fan. I've always found him to be just kind of a boring Boy Scout. Albeit that I don't see myself going out and buying one of those retro Captain America t-shirts that I often see. This movie actually made me kind of like him. In this movie, we actually see him give the gigantic middle finger to authority, and for mostly good reasons. And given the history of things, he makes a very fair argument by taking that stance. However, on the other end, you have Iron Man, Tony Stark, of course, played by Robert Downey Jr., who believes that maybe the Avengers should answer to a higher power, so to speak. As for Tony Stark, one of the reasons why he's willing to comply with government is because of the overall death toll that him and the Avengers have caused given their escapades. And it is true that they have saved a whole hell of a lot more people versus the people that have been killed by collateral damage, but he comes from a standpoint that says, no, we need to be kept in check, we need to be careful, we can't allow this to happen. I went into the film Team Iron Man mostly because Team Iron Man just has the cooler characters and Team Cap just looks kind of lame to me. But coming out of it, I was neutral. However, if I were going purely off of their ideologies alone, then I would definitely be Team Cap because his seems to be the most rational. Meanwhile, you have Tony, who does make a very compelling argument. However, he's also plagued by guilt. He feels like he has blood in his hands, and he just doesn't want that responsibility anymore. And unlike the other movies, Tony Stark here, he's not just the wisecracking tinkerer that we have become accustomed to seeing. No, he's actually quite broken in this one. And I think this is by far the best performance that I've seen by Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. As for some problems, because I do not think this movie is perfect, one of which being a reveal that comes later on in the film, and it's just a little too coincidental in my opinion. But what really holds me back from giving this a higher rating is mostly to do with Sebastian Stan's character, Bucky, the Winter Soldier. And besides the fact that I just don't find Sebastian Stan's portrayal as Bucky all too captivating, I do have some problems with the character itself. Watching the film, his motivations did somewhat confuse me because even though he did show a slight hint of remorse for the people he's killed, he didn't really seem all too willing to comply when someone would come along to apprehend him. He knows that he is a weapon that can be used and abused by anyone, so I just don't get why he would just keep on running knowing all of that. And it's not like he was trying to survive or be free for anybody else. He was just doing it purely for himself, so in that regard I thought it was just kind of selfish, though you could say that he was just doing it because of a survival instinct. He was a soldier, so that would explain something. Regardless, although his part is indeed pivotal to the film, I just didn't really care for his scenes. As for any last statements that I want to make before I give my rating, I really enjoyed Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. I haven't seen Ant-Man the movie, but watching this kind of makes me want to go watch Ant-Man. Overall, Captain America Civil War is a movie that I enjoyed a lot more than I expected to, and it's a movie that actually managed to make a cynic such as myself a fan. And if you're somebody who is like me, then I would recommend this. Give it a shot, see what you think of it, because I think you'll at least like something about it. So with all of that said, I'm going to give Captain America Civil War a very strong 4 out of 5. So far, Captain America Civil War is one of my favorite movies of the year, and before I go, I do want to say this. I have reached 1,000 subscribers, all thanks to you all out there who watch my videos, who have subscribed to me. My Batman v Superman video is, I believe, my most viewed review ever. It's got 4,000 views, which is a lot to me, and I don't know how it got that many views. I'm perplexed by that. I wish it could have been a better video, and I sure as hell wish it could have been a better movie, but don't we all kind of wish that? Again, thanks for the support, thanks for the comments, thanks for the feedback, thanks for the words of wisdom. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I truly mean that. And like I always say, I hope to continue to make videos that you want to watch. Moreover, if you're somebody who has seen Captain America Civil War, then do let me know your thoughts on it. And as always, I'm Colin Kirkland, and thank you so much for watching.